Well, it's pretty obvious what the key to success is in the Big Ten Conference. Running the damn ball. When looking at this week's games, I thought, man, I could do a lot of recap videos, a lot of review videos on a lot of these games and react to these ones, but they generally all be the same because Michigan, Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin generally did one thing. They ran the ball like we've never seen before. I don't know if I've ever seen this many teams, this group of teams in Big Ten play, run the ball, or I guess throw the ball, in the same weekend at the same amount of success, and it was ultra successful for all four teams. It was a great weekend. It was a flashback weekend. We're going back to your father's Big Ten, 80s, 70s, running the ball 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Let's start first with Michigan. That tandem, when they are on, they are great. Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum both rushed for over 100 yards against that Northwestern defense. Now, given coming into the game, that Northwestern defense wasn't the best rush defense in the Big Ten Conference. This is definitely not going to be one of Pat Fitzgerald's best team or best defenses. But Michigan continues to do what they do and continues to build confidence in that running game. Going into that game against Michigan State coming up this weekend, this is a big one, right? And we've seen games where maybe Corum isn't on, Haskins picks up the slack, and vice versa. The big question, right, as we go further down the schedule for Michigan is going to be, can they throw the ball when they need to? All right, let's talk about Illinois. Let's talk about Penn State, because this thing has kind of two sides to the sword, so to speak. 357 yards rushing for Illinois. Let me say that again. 357 yards. Chase Brown, 223 on the ground, 7 yards per carry. Josh McCray, 142 on the ground, 6 yards per carry. Those last statistics, yards per carry, is what concerns me about this Penn State defense. And before I get to that Nittany Lion defense, you got to give a big shout out to Brett Bielema at Illinois, right? His third win of the season. They are progressing. And this is the week, right, where he specifically called out his offensive line, saying none of them really have any ability at the next level or to get better or anything like that. And then what do? They go out and they rush and they carry the running backs to over 350 yards on the ground. Something tells me Brett might get an A+ in the motivating factor of being a head coach right there. Tremendous job by Brett Bielema and that team. But let's look at this from a Penn State perspective, right? A team that was ranked 7th in the country, a team that we thought had a good defense. This makes me look at Penn State a lot differently, because you have a team that, let's be honest, you should have beaten 40-10. You should have taken care of business, and you should have routed this Illinois team. This is a rebuilding Fighting Illini program. But you didn't. Now, a lot of that has to do with your lack of offensive production. But man, if you know what Illinois is going to do, you know that they're going to run the ball, you got to find a way to stop it. And they were out physical. And that is concerning to me, because there are teams remaining on Penn State's schedule that can line up and out physical them. Ohio State, even though they do like to do other things, they can run the ball and they can be physical. Michigan State can be physical. Michigan can be physical. And where is James Franklin's mind? Is it in Southern California? Is it in Baton Rouge, Louisiana? Is it in State College, Pennsylvania? That's a big question right now. And Penn State, little worried about you, because defense looking a little soft after Illinois just ran it down the throat of the Penn State Nittany Lions. And let's talk about Wisconsin. Let's transition to that game. I said in the preview, Purdue had no run game whatsoever, and I think we all knew that coming in. Purdue negative 13 yards on the ground, but Wisconsin 290 yards on the ground. Graham Mertz only threw the ball 8 times. This is like Army-Navy stuff right now, right? They are running it, and you look back at these other games, these last 2 games against Army and against Illinois, he threw it 15 times or less in both of those games. So this is a Wisconsin team that has a very clear identity. Great defense and running game. Now that Braylon Allen, the true freshman, has gotten more reps and he's getting more carries, now that takes a little bit off Ches Malusi, and now you've got a true two-headed monster in the backfield for Wisconsin. Don't count out the Badgers quite yet in the Big Ten West. Now that they beat Purdue, they have the head-to-head over them. They have 2 losses in the conference, but they still have Minnesota and Iowa ahead of them over there. And you look at Malusi and Allen, both over 140 yards in that game against Purdue. Purdue didn't have a bad defense. They were 8th out of 14 in the Big Ten against the run. I thought Purdue would do better than this, personally, defensively. But what this tells me about Wisconsin, they are getting into their groove offensively. They know exactly what they want to do. Maybe in the beginning of the season, they thought Graham could put it over the top and really advance the ball in the passing game. I think they know now, let's start with the running game. Let's be physical. This is how Wisconsin has played for many, many years. And let's keep it going. Braylon Allen, Chez Malusi, possibly the best 1-2 punch at running back. Maybe not only the Big Ten, but some might say nationwide. And first, let's finish with the Gophers. Let's finish with Minnesota. You talk about a 2-headed monster. Minnesota's got a 3-headed monster at running back. And Kai Thomas and Marquise Irving both over 100 yards and 6.5 yards per carry. The one thing about all of these teams is all of their backs were 5-6 yards a pop is, they were getting good yardage, right? It wasn't, a bunch of carries and a little bit of yards. They were popping off big runs consistently against these defenses, and that's what Minnesota did. Outrushing Maryland's 326 yards to 79. Once again, this is a lot like the Northwestern deal. It's a lot like the Purdue deal. We didn't think Maryland had the best rush defense in the conference at all, but these teams putting up these huge, gaudy numbers in the running game is crazy. And I look at Minnesota. They're 5-2 now. Got games against Northwestern and Illinois coming up next. I think those are going to be a little bit more difficult, especially the Illinois game, than we might imagine. But that game against Iowa coming up, that could be a winner-take-all Big Ten West type of showdown there in November. And I love this Minnesota team, right? That offensive line is big. They line up eight, sometimes a bunch of offensive linemen down there sometime, and there's no bones about it, what they're going to do and what they're going to try to do. I want to see them respond. I want to see them be stopped a little. In my preview, I said, let's see if Minnesota can execute a full game plan. They did exactly that. Full 4-quarter game, putting up 34 points on this Maryland defense. I want to see Tanner Morgan, because there are going to be points, whether it's against Iowa or whether it's down the road against some of these other teams, there are going to be points where Tanner Morgan is going to have to be the guy. He's going to have to push the ball down the field. He's going to have to make plays. But in the meantime, we can marvel at what PJ Fleck and what Minnesota has been able to do. You're plugging in really your 3rd, 4th, and 5th running backs back there, and they're putting up 100 yards a pop. They're looking like number one. They're looking like Mo Ibrahim, and then what Trey Potts was able to do. You plug anybody back there for Minnesota, and they're going to have a really, really good day. Now, when you look at all these things, the Big Ten is, seriously, Big Ten is the most physical conference in the country. That's one thing I took away from this past weekend with all of those teams. Okay, the SEC is great, but in the past, maybe they were really physical. But now they've gone more finesse. Those teams like to throw the ball around and score a lot of points, and it's obviously worked for them. But when you talk about physicality consistently across the board in a conference, the Big Ten is the king of physicality right now. And I think that is going to be who comes out in the East, and then, even who comes out in the West. Who's the most physical team? Who can impose their will on the other? I firmly believe whoever is the most physical team is going to possibly win the conference. Now, the one outlier in that is Ohio State. That's a team right now that is above anybody else in terms of scoring the football. I'm looking forward to Ohio State down the stretch to see, is their high-flying offense, are they going to be able to score against some of these better defenses? Can teams out-physical Ohio State? The Buckeyes have gotten better on defense. There's a lot to talk about, and this week is going to be a big one. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, your reaction to all these teams running the ball and the physicality returning to the Big Ten Conference, looking like the days of old in this lunch pail type of conference. Bring it. You got to bring it. Otherwise, you're not going to have a shot against some of these physical teams. Leave your thoughts in the comments below on this and then this weekend's matchups. Subscribe to Big Ten Ted for Big Ten football content. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.